When my mother asked the same questions over and over again, we knew she had a problem. My next guest, Dr. Thomas Holland, was influenced into specializing in the care and prevention of Alzheimer's when he watched his grandmother suffer the consequences of this disease. Alzheimer's is an epidemic in the United States, affecting an estimated 6.9 million people. The start of Alzheimer's predates symptoms by 20 years. What can we do to prevent Alzheimer's and slow down this dreaded disease? Tune in.
Baransu Balance Podcast with Dr. Ince emphasizes the interdependence and importance of a healthy mind, body, and soul.
Welcome to another episode of Baransu Balance Podcast. Well, Alzheimer's begins 20 years or more before memory loss and other symptoms develop. Now that's a scary fact. Today we have Dr. Thomas Holland from Rush University in Chicago, Illinois, to discuss what we can do to prevent Alzheimer's. Dr. Holland is a faculty instructor at the Rush Institute for Healthy Aging at the Rush University Medical Center in Chicago. He is the Assistant Trial Director and Medical Advisor of the Alzheimer's Association U.S. Pointer Trial, the largest community-based Alzheimer's prevention trial in the United States. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. I believe the largest and only trial of its kind. Is that correct?
In the U.S., yes.
In the United States. Okay. Well, we have some questions from our listening audience. We're going to start off with Lynette from Raleigh, North Carolina. She asked, is stress related to Alzheimer's, and can stress reduction have an impact on dementia?
So first and foremost, absolutely. Stress is going to be immensely impactful on our capability to develop new memories. So if you think about stress as having the capability to impact how we make memories or interfere with making memories, it makes sense that it can impact our risk for Alzheimer's. So the way you want to think about this is that stress can be a chronic low-level inflammatory process, which in turn can damage neural tissue, which can lead to cognitive decline. So reducing stress can be beneficial in mitigating the risk for dementia. So having different techniques like mindfulness, meditation, regular physical activity, and social engagement are going to be very helpful in mitigating that stress and reducing stress.
Okay, so the stress puts out all those fight or flight hormones, and those hormones, the cortisol levels and the steroids, can damage the neurons, the brain, and long term. I wasn't quite aware that it could cause long-term damage. So we have Deborah from Memphis, Tennessee. She asked, can Alzheimer's be reversed at an early stage? And if so, what can you do to reverse or delay the progression of Alzheimer's?
So when we think about Alzheimer's disease or Alzheimer's dementia, the current held view is that you cannot reverse dementia. So early stage intervention can significantly delay the progression itself. And early interventions are going to be focused on those lifestyle factors, but in particular, diet, physical activity, cognitive activity, socialization, and stress reduction. So these diets are going to be, in particular, MIND diet, which is the Mediterranean DASH intervention for neurodegenerative delay. And that's a combination of the Mediterranean DASH diet. Both the Mediterranean DASH diets themselves are also quite beneficial, as they really focus in on those fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats. Now, for physical activity, we want to focus in on 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity and trying to separate that into about 5 bouts of 30 minutes across our week. Cognitive activities like puzzles or learning new skills, in particular languages or instruments, really helps bolster our cognitive reserve and cognitive resilience. Another aspect is going to be managing cardiovascular disease risks. So talking with your primary care physician about where your cholesterol sits or whether or not your hemoglobin A1C is increasing or controlling your blood pressure. So those are going to be ways to help delay progression or prevent decline altogether.
Okay, so the can you tell us a little bit more about the mind diet
Yeah.
and what that entails? I'm
Mhm.
I've been a lifelong vegetarian. Um, I know that there's such a thing as unhealthy vegetarians because I've known quite a few
Right.
personally. You know, I think cheesecake falls under the category of lacto-ovo vegetarian. So, uh, what what is the mind diet? I like that acronym, mind diet.
So,
Brain food.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So, MIND stands for the Mediterranean Dash Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay. It was developed by my research mentor, Dr. Martha Claire Morris, who unfortunately passed away in 2020, and the current principal investigator of the Rush Chicago site for the US Pointer trial, Dr. Christy Tagney.
Okay.
And the diet focuses in on the foods that have robust science backing them. So the really amazing thing about it was that both of these researchers looked at nutrients and foods and food groups and saw what was beneficial and what was
Mhm.
harmful. And that is how the diet was formed. So there's 9 foods to take in and 5 to avoid. I like to focus in on the 5 to minimize first and foremost. So that's going to be red meat, fried fast food, butter, high fat dairy, and sweets. And the particular aspects of those foods that are not ideal is that they are high typically in trans fats and saturated fats. And that's going to translate into um, atherosclerosis and blocking those blood vessels. And we're also going to see that those foods lead to an increase in inflammation. Now, the foods to intake are going to be leafy greens in particular, so dark leafy greens like kale, spinach, arugula. Also, other vegetables is a category to itself. Berries, so blueberries, um, strawberries, raspberries, as well as the whole wheat, extra virgin olive oil, fish, and lean poultry, nuts. And what we're seeing with a lot of these foods is they provide us a diverse quantity and quality of nutrients, so the vitamins, minerals, as well as bioactives. And in particular, we're seeing a lot of really good antioxidants, as well as the omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, which help increase our HDL levels. And that HDL level, in turn, is going to help with our vascular health.
Did, did you say to increase the HDL?
Yes.
That's what you said. Okay. So the omega-3 fatty acids can increase the good cholesterol and
Yep.
help us with our heart
Yeah.
and our brain.
Yeah. And that's going to be
Yeah.
particularly the olive oil or avocado oil, fish, whole wheat, and nuts.
Okay, what about some of the seeds, like the pumpkin seeds or flaxseed?
I know flaxseed is very good. Pumpkin
Mm-hmm.
seeds as well are going to have an abundance of fiber. So all of those aspects are going to be beneficial from an overall health perspective.
Oh. Okay, so um, Deborah also, I think you answered some of this, but what do you see in your studies in the nutrient intake that is different among people who get dementia and those who do not?
Right.
And I saw one of your studies that
Yeah.
said something about flavonoids.
Yes, yes. So flavonoids is going to be in that category of bioactives. So it's not under the
What
nutrient,
are flavonoids?
right? So those are going to be what we call bioactives. So they are other components of food that are beneficial and have health benefits, but they don't fall under the category of nutrients, being either vitamins or minerals. So the flavonoids are particularly found in fruits and vegetables. And dependent upon the type of food that you're intaking, there's going to be a diverse intake of these flavonoids. So one of my studies in particular focused on flavonols, which,
Flavonols,
yeah,
flavonoils.
yep. I know it's very intriguing, the language that's been defined with these. So there's the broad category of flavonoids, and then there are subtypes of flavonoids within there. Flavanols, Flavonols. And there's also been flavanols, Flavanols, both of which have been in the news a lot lately. So there's also another category called anthocyanidins. So when we start looking at these, we can parse out the abundance in food.
So
And
I'm usually not the one that interprets. We grew up in California and I moved to Louisiana a number of years ago. And sometimes they didn't understand my accent or what I was
Mhm.
saying. So I'm not usually the one that is interpreting, but I'm going to have to step in here. So
Yes, please.
so the flavonoids are like what colored vegetables and the anthocyanins are what colored vegetables?
Okay, so the flavonoids are going to be the broad
Flavonoids.
category.
Hmm.
Flavanols, one particular subtype that I study, are going to be found in leafy greens,
Hmm.
onions, tomatoes, as well as olive oil,
Just
tea.
regular onions, green
Hmm.
onions, yellow onions. Wow.
Yeah, so
I knew there was something good about onions. I wasn't
onions
sure
are
though.
great. Onions are great. I love red onions.
Okay.
And then the flavin-3-ols or flavanols, those are found in tea and cacao, um, as well as coffee. So that's going, and then we also have this category of catechins, which are going to be in tea and coffee as well. And then the anthocyanidins are going to be in a bit more of the fruits like berries and oranges and citrus. And so in particular, the fruits and vegetables are all going to have this wide array of flavonoids.
Okay.
So again, it's a alternate way of thinking about the benefits of the foods that you're intaking.
Okay. So your particular study showed in um, whatever 900 patients that
Mhm,
the the group of people that had more flavonoids or flavonols
mhm.
had less
Flavanols, yeah.
had less dementia. Was that what happened?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So the higher intake of flavanols had a
Hmm.
decrease in the rate of cognitive decline. So they were declining at a slower rate, and also a decreased risk for developing Alzheimer's dementia. And so again, the foods that are quite abundant, or sorry, the foods that have an abundance of these flavonols are going to be dark leafy greens in particular. Kale was the best vegetable that had the most concentration or density of these flavonols. And again, so we're talking spinach, arugula, seaweed, those dark leafy greens.
Okay.
Thereafter, Sure. The other ones would be olive oil, olives, tea, tomatoes, onions. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, right. Well, thank you. Now we have a question from Dawn from North Carolina.
Mhm.
Are there ethnic groups more susceptible to Alzheimer's? And I want to add and follow up, and why do you think?
Yes, absolutely. So the CDC has been very uh, upfront about the different risk categories for differing ethnic and racial groups. So we know that for white Americans, the risk is about 10%. For Latino Americans, it's 12%, and for African Americans, it's 14%. So there are going to be certain ethnic groups that have a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's. So to your point, the increased risk is going to be, it's believed to be due to a combination of genetic factors, higher rates of cardiovascular risk factors like hypertension and diabetes, hypercholesterolemia, so having high cholesterol levels, as well as socioeconomic factors. So when we think about social determinants of health and how that's impacting some of our population, we have to be very cognizant of how it's impacting that population. So when I talk to somebody, I am in the Chicagoland area, and whenever I tell somebody that they should get physical activity, and I provide this very specific prescription of physical activity of this 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity, and I say, hey, go do this. I also need to ask, can they do it safely? If they go outside, is it a safe neighborhood? If they go outside, are the sidewalks at different levels? Is there fall risk if you're walking outside, especially if you're walking with a pace? Because then I don't want to have them in a situation where they could fall and fracture a leg or a hip, and then that puts them at risk of obviously other disease processes, but also at an increased risk for Alzheimer's. So recognizing that there are going to be social determinants of health, and in particular, uh, impacting our risk for Alzheimer's is going to be important.
Right. So I'm a medical oncologist, and the example that I give how the social determinants of health affect the medical outcome is prostate cancer. So we are
Mhm.
often told that prostate cancer is more aggressive and deadly in Black men, but the VA have, they did one large study where they have the same insurance, same physicians, same pretty much background, and they looked at the outcomes, and the African Americans did as well, or maybe even a little bit better than the white counterparts.
Mm.
And so, and then, there are other trials as well.
Yeah.
Children cancers pretty much covered for with treatment, and their outcomes are pretty much equal as well. So I think the social determinants of health have a lot to do with that.
Mhm.
Okay, so I want to add a question from this is actually a physician, a neurologist, Dr. Charles from Louisiana, Alexandria, and he says, "What are the blood biomarkers to diagnose Alzheimer's that are
Yeah.
on the horizon or are available now? Most people are not willing to undergo a spinal tap, and PET scans are expensive."
Yes, absolutely. PET scans are immensely expensive, so are MRIs. To your point, there has been a lot of advancement in those PET CT scans. Um, so before I jump into the blood biomarkers, I did want to mention there are these new markers for amyloid called fluor beta band, and that can be used with a PET CT to look at the burden of amyloid. And then there's another one called MK6240, which is approved for trials and will presumptively be approved, barring anything egregious, but it can tag for the neurofibrillary tangles, so that hyperphosphorylated tau protein. So to jump into the question or the point being made that scanning is expensive and spinal taps are not only scary, but invasive, more so than a blood draw. We do know that there are the blood biomarkers that mirror those amyloid or neurofibrillary tangles in the blood. So the amyloid that is particular for Alzheimer's is A beta 40 and 42. And so what we're looking at in the blood is going to be the 42 to 40 ratio. The other aspect that we can see in blood is going to be tau. So those hyperphosphorylated tau proteins, but it's particularly called tau 181. So that's the molecular weight there. And there's also a molecule called neurofilament light chain. So NFL. And these biomarkers uh, are going to be more affordable than PET scans, less invasive than those spinal taps. And although they're not widely available yet, they are expected to become more widely available, especially as the research progresses and the want for these tests enhances.
Okay, so right now they're not widely available or commercially available for your primary care or neurologist?
Not to my understanding. I'm sure that a
Oh, okay.
neurologist could potentially order it.
Okay.
But
Okay.
having not ordered them on a patient, but seeing
Okay.
it done on participants of studies, you
Okay.
know, as you know, we want to make sure that everything is appropriately done and has the appropriate sensitivity and specificity before it rolls out broadly to the public. And especially we
Okay.
need to make sure that we have interventions that are going to be beneficial for
Okay.
individuals. So,
Okay. So, and so we talked about the uh, exercise, diet, stress reduction,
mhm.
and we want to break with for a brief advertisement. Oh, but you're not recruiting for the pointer trial anymore. Well, anyway, a brief description of your pointer trial.
So this is a study that is being conducted at 5 different sites across the US. We have a little over 2,000 individuals, so about 400 individuals at each site. And we're looking at individuals aged 60 to 79, and they had to meet our inclusion exclusion criteria. So in particular, some of the inclusion criteria was having a immediate family member that had Alzheimer's, so family history, having hyperlipidemia, so high cholesterol, or diabetes, hypertension, being overweight. We want to make sure that the study population mirrors our population in the US. So the intervention of the Pointer trial is we have 2 different groups. One is a self-guided and one is a structured, and we provide the educational components on how to implement lifestyle factors. So those lifestyle factors in particular are diet, but the mind diet, physical activity, as we said, the 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous, but trying to separate that into 5 bouts per week. Uh, Cognitive activities, so doing challenging components throughout your day that are going to make your brain work. So puzzles, learning about a composer, learning about an artist. One format that was utilized in the trial is called Brain HQ by Posit Science.
I'm sorry,
Um,
what was that?
Brain HQ,
Okay.
and it was a program that is built out to help challenge your brain. Another aspect is socialization. So having strong, rooted relationships, being able to have good conversation and be out in the world. So in caveat there is you can be alone and not feel lonely, and you can be alone and feel lonely. And what we want to prevent is being alone and feeling lonely. We know that that has an impact on brain health. So then on the flip side,
Do you
socialization.
pay for friends?
We don't pay for friends, but we do set up groups within the trial.
Oh,
So there are group meetings to,
okay.
you know, inquire with other participants about how their progress is going, having those social relationships. Some of the groups have even set up their own, let's call them convenings outside of the normal study routine. So they're able to get out and have those conversations about life, progress within the trial, progress within whatever they're doing. And it really helps drive that socialization aspect and bolster, in particular, cognitive resilience and cognitive reserve.
So, to break it down, we know from previous observations that lifestyle choices such as diet and blood pressure control play a role in decreasing Alzheimer's risk. In the Pointer trial, a participant, let's say Mary Jones from Chicago, enrolls. She's 5 feet 4 inches tall, 170 pounds, overweight, has diabetes, her blood pressure is not controlled, and has little social engagement. The goal is to improve her diet, control her diabetes and blood pressure, get Mary more physically, socially, and cognitively engaged, and at the end of the day, Mary should have a reduced risk of Alzheimer's dementia. We look forward to the results of this landmark Pointer trial. Okay, so I want to piggyback another question that Deborah had. Is that
Mhm.
is dementia related to the invention of the iPhone 2007 and social media? I'm not even sure when that was invented. And
Right. Yeah.
prolonged use of these devices.
Right now, there's no conclusive evidence linking cell phone use or prolonged internet usage to Alzheimer's. However, excessive use of those digital devices, um, when we think about what the use of those devices is replacing, we need to be cognizant of that. So, is using your cell phone or being on the internet replacing your physical activity? Is it replacing your face-to-face social interactions? Is it contributing to a more sedentary lifestyle and social isolation, which are going to be factors for cognitive decline?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to keep in mind with Alzheimer's and say the diagnosis of Alzheimer's is that we are living longer than we ever have in history. And
Mm-hmm.
Alzheimer's is a disease of aging. So if somebody passed away in their 50s from a heart attack and they would have developed Alzheimer's, well, they didn't die from Alzheimer's or complications of Alzheimer's, they died from the heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we have interventions to improve cardiovascular health and interventions to improve kidney health, people are living longer with disease processes. But as they live longer with the disease processes, those processes are going to impact our neural tissue in some facet, whether or not it's vascular and we're preventing oxygen and nutrient blood flow to our brains, or if it's an inflammatory process that's actually uh, directly damaging neural tissue. Now we see a bit more of an onset of dementia in these later years.
Right. So Alzheimer's is definitely increasing in numbers because, like you said, we're an aging population, and
Mhm.
but I believe we're making some progress in decreasing the percentage of numbers, and I would love to, see these numbers go down with as as more people are have access to this information.
Yes.
And so I'd like to end with saying that so you're young, and got you interested in this? I'm going to almost end with the same quote that I started with. Alzheimer's begins 20 years or more before memory loss and other symptoms develop. So,
Yeah.
what got you into this field? And tell us a little bit about your journey and maybe an obstacle that you had to overcome to get here. I'm really
Yeah, absolutely.
impressed, very impressed, Dr. Holland, Dr. Thomas Holland. I'm so happy that you were able to join me. You have a long CV for such a young person.
I appreciate it. I like to think I look younger than I am. So, to your point, that Alzheimer's neuropathology is depositing and showing up 20 years before clinical syndrome. So, I'm in my late 30s, and if we anticipate that the potential onset of clinical syndrome is in your 60s, I want to make sure that I am being as diligent as possible in my own prevention within my life. So my journey, I went to St. Louis University for my undergraduate studies. I did a bachelor's in clinical lab sciences and um, a minor in music and in biology. So I focused on voice while I was in my undergrad. So I got really interested in medicine early on in life. I had a surgery when I was 13 on my chest. I had pectus excavatum, which is a more or less a dent in my chest. And as I was growing older, my ribs were pushing my chest further down. So I had to have that repaired when I was 13. And that got me really, uh, I think, solidified my journey into medicine. So after undergrad, I went to Nairobi, Kenya with a neurosurgery group called the Foundation for International Education in Neurosurgery, which is a group of neurosurgeons that travel to various regions in Africa and demonstrate new techniques for neurosurgery. And while there, I was, had a very wonderful experience and got to see what their medical system was, got to meet some really, really great individuals in Kenya as well as physicians there. I'm still in contact with the son of one of the doctors there. Um, and so after that, I went to medical school. I went to Rush Medical School and Rush Medical College. And while there, I was in a lot of my rotations and saw that the population was it was a quite challenging population from the aspect of not really implementing, let's say, lifestyle factors. There were a lot of disease processes that could have been mitigated by diet or physical activity, unregulated diabetes leading to neuropathology and eventual amputation or damaging
Mm.
kidneys and
or,
people
or,
needing
or
to be on,
blindness and kidney
yeah,
failure.
yeah, and then they're on dialysis or kids. And one of the most profound experiences for me was there was a younger kid. He was about 12, and I was in the clinic room with him. And as we were talking, his brother had gone outside, and he said, "I want to lose weight so that I can be as fast as my brother."
Oh.
And that was very profound for me because this was a 12 or 13-year-old kid saying this. And I said, with my career, I want to be as impactful on how people live their life, what their lived experience is, as I possibly can. I want to make my little corner of the world as healthy as I possibly can.
Mm.
So that was where I got really resolute in wanting to do aspects of lifestyle. So, fast forward a little bit, I had some difficulties with test taking and had some challenges there. And while I was taking some time away from school, I was reflecting on what I wanted my journey in my career to be. And while I was doing that, my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Mm.
And that was, again, another large kind of crux in terms of deviation into research. So I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Martha Claire Morris. and she was an epidemiologist doing research in diet and Alzheimer's. And I met with her, and our visions of what we wanted medicine to be were in line. So I started a postdoc with her and did training in research and diet, as well as other lifestyle factors for Alzheimer's. And then that branched into a plethora of opportunities. So thereafter, I got a master's in clinical research and started working on the Pointer trial. I also do work within cohorts. So the Chicago Health and Aging Project, PORCH, which is a generational study of the original CHAP cohort participants. I do work in the Memory and Aging Project. We also have a trial called Nourish, which is a dietary intervention for post-stroke individuals. So a lot of really great work being done. And then last year I started a PhD. And so I'll be doing a PhD looking at other effectors that impact cognition as we age. So,
Well,
again, yeah, having the
that,
opportunity to chat with individuals and participants in particular about their journey and how they are progressing through their life and what they can do to modify and improve their health has been very, very rewarding.
okay, well, thank you so much, Thomas. This has been enlightening and has given us hope. My father died of advanced Alzheimer's. It was difficult watching him go through that, as well as multiple family members. And we will continue to cheer you on and thank you until we meet again.
Yeah, and can I give one plug?
Yes.
So I work with a organization called Mind What Matters, and
Mhm.
it's a nonprofit caregiver organization where they provide scholarships for caregivers to take a step away and have some respite. It is a wonderful uh, just organization, a lot of dedication there. But the idea behind it of giving caregivers that may have not been able to step away for 10, 15, 20 years from caregiving for
Mm.
somebody that has cognitive decline is wonderful. And we see a lot of people come back with a newfound exuberance for what they're doing, how they're working with their loved one. And it's a great organization.
Okay, so it's mindwhatmatters.org.
Yes.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right.
And
Thank you.
and how can they reach you if they need to, or Rush University?
Yeah, yeah,
I will leave the website or the contact info at the end
yeah.
for
In
everyone.
my LinkedIn as well, I can
Mm.
send you links for my LinkedIn.
Okay.
Um, and I'm okay giving my email address out. It's on the manuscripts, so it's widely available. So you can include that
Okay.
in as well if you would like.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. In summary, a call to action of things you can do now to prevent or slow down the onset of Alzheimer's. Number one, the Mind Diet. See attached references. Is basically eating a rainbow, all the flavonoids, berries 2 times a week, and daily nuts. I love blueberries. I'm concerned with Dr. Holland that some of our recommendations are not practical in all populations. I looked at a bag of mixed frozen berries, $10 for 10 servings. At first, I thought it was expensive. Then I thought, one fast food item would cost that much, so not too bad. Number two, limit cheese, preferably to less than once a week. Limit butter, trans fats, red meats, and sweets. Number three, aerobics, moderate exercise, 30 minutes a day for most days. Consult your healthcare provider if you are sedentary and have health issues. Walk with a buddy if possible. Water aerobics, tennis, gym, online workouts. Exchange some of your screen time for exercise. a life-saving decision. Number 4, treat hypertension. A suggested goal of a systolic less than 130. Treated in midlife have been shown to help decrease risk of dementia. Keep your diabetes under control with a hemoglobin A1C of less than 7. Number 5, social interactions. In this day of remote work, post-pandemic, isolation has increased to pandemic levels. Join a jogging club. My niece, a busy law student, joined a jogging club. Join a church. Volunteer. Zoom family meetings. If you are single, go on dates. Well, safe dates. I believe God said it is not good for man to be alone. Number 6, cognitive stimulations. Learn a new language. Habla español? Music, take up an instrument. Art, puzzles, Brain HQ. All of the above should reduce stress and increase your chances of maintaining brain health. This podcast gives me hope, and I hope it has inspired you to do something. See the attached references and link to contact Dr. Thomas Holland. This is Dr. Christine Ince, wishing you a balanced mind, body, and soul. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.